after that, I just had I think it was a God moment because I was just convinced that my husband would come before Christmas Day. I mean,
Oh, wow.
got
Mm-hmm.
ready. If anybody told me that they had something hidden, I just thought the husband will pop up. I mean, this was childlike faith, and
Mm-hmm.
I was happy. I would trusted God. I don't think that's ever happened before, but I just trusted God that God said it. He asked me to ask for what I want. I told him what I want. He's God. He's a
Mm-hmm.
miracle
Yep.
working God. Therefore, I will receive that gift. So I received the gift.
Love stories fill us with joy and inspire hope for the future. And a true life romance can remind us that sometimes just one spark is all it takes to change everything.
Welcome
Wow.
to Unexpected Love Stories. I'm your host, Dawn Prushkovsky, and today we have a She Said, He Said episode with Maya and Wanji Williams. Just let me tell you a little bit about Maya. She was born in Dortmund, Germany, but she grew up in Freetown, Sierra Leone, and London in the UK. And she moved to the US when she and Wanji got married. Maya's a homeschool mom. She taught both of her two children for 5 years, and she now teaches French and Latin at a Christian school. She's passionate about living a healthy lifestyle and coaches people on reducing their exposure to environmental toxins and unhealthy eating choices in her spare time. So she's definitely someone you want to get in touch with if these are the things that you're concerned with. So, Maya, thank you so much for being here and letting us in on your love story and that whole journey that you have with Wanji, because I've got to hear it before and I love all the twists and turns.
Yeah.
But we can't wait to hear the details. So, let's begin at the beginning. Welcome and tell us first how you met Wanji, or how did this whole love story begin?
Well, Don, thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure.
Well, having us, I should say, but you realize why I said me first before us. But anyway, so I feel like I've known Wanji all my life, even though I only met Wanji, officially met Wanji. I think I was 29
Hmm.
when I met him. No, it must have been earlier. 29 when he came over to the UK, but yeah, early on. But
Hmm.
I knew of Wanji through my brother. So I have a twin brother,
Hmm.
and he would always get us in trouble. So our school uniform was, well, his school uniform was white and with khaki pants. And
Hmm.
growing up in Sierra Leone, we didn't have the nice, lawn and you have here in America. It was mostly dusty. And
Hmm.
he would come home every day like he had had a fight, or probably he didn't go to school. He came home like he had been rolling up and down the hill. And he would always promise that he would look nicer the following day.
Hmm.
Uh, and he would say, "Mom, I would, I promise you, I'd look this clean, like this boy going down the road." So we always saw Wanji's back, never. So because he would get into trouble every day, I grew to despise Wanji because I'm thinking, why are you comparing yourself with somebody you would never be that clean. So that's how I knew of Wanji. Went to school with his sisters, but never met him till 2005, 2000 and yeah, it must have been 2005.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so that was it. But I think I officially met him in 2004, 2005. I can't remember
Hmm.
now. We met over the phone first, so yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah.
All right. So you met over the phone. How did that happen?
So I think Wanji, oh yes, I remember what happened. So Wanji and I have a story where I joke around with him. I'm like, yeah, you were saved from the womb. Wasn't saved from the womb.
Hmm.
I got saved when I was 22, and we're both from the same place, both from Freetown, Sierra Leone. And when I became saved, my parents were a bit concerned because obviously cultural Christianity was what we observed, I should say,
Hmm.
and I became saved, known as, oh, the born again kind of girl who, who will she marry? And I think they
Hmm.
were a bit concerned, and they would always try to make sure, they set you up with someone or introduce you to someone or at least talk to
Uh-huh.
you about someone. Um,
Don't you
and my
love that about your parents? That's
I think they were just genuinely worried, like,
uh-huh.
who's going to be our son-in-law? Will he even speak English? What's
Hmm.
going on? Would he, or it would even speak our language, Creole?
Hmm.
So I said to my mom that I don't care who I marry, as long as the person is a Christian. I don't, and we, Wanji and I joke about this, but I said, even if he's Chinese, I will marry him.
Hmm.
And they weren't alarmed, but I know my parents thinking, okay, but if it's Chinese, what's going to go on and blah, 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 the language and all that. Apparently,
Hmm.
Wanji did the same to his mother. He
Oh.
had given his
Hmm.
mother the same response. So my mom and his mom got talking. We were both living out of Sierra Leone at this time. I was in London, Wanji was here. They both got talking one day and realized that, maybe if they gave us these responses, maybe we should get them together, because they're obviously looking for this Christian type of
Hmm.
person. So in the end, Wanji got my number from his mom, or basically his mom forced him to take my number. And Wanji Wanji called, and we had a wonderful discussion. Well, I
Hmm.
thought it was a good discussion for somebody who had never really talked to before or anything. I just thought, yeah, we got on fine. But
So
then
he
he didn't.
called from the States
He
to
called from the States. I
London?
think he was from the States, yes. He
Okay.
called from the States to me, and we probably were on the phone for an hour. Um,
Hmm.
and but
That's a long
apparently,
distance charge. Yeah.
yeah. But he didn't call after that. So I just thought, oh, well, did I do something wrong? I didn't know
Hmm.
what was going on in his world. I just thought, oh, well, at least we had a
Hmm.
nice chat. At least, I think my thought was, at least I met a Sierra Leonean who um, was dedicated to God, because
Hmm.
my friends and the people who I grew up with, that wasn't that wasn't what we did.
Yes.
For now I was the only Christian within my friend group, and it was just refreshing meeting somebody else who I could talk to and who comes from the same place that I am coming from.
Hmm.
So
Someone who
that
kind of understands you and yeah.
mhm.
So can I ask how old were you at this time?
2000, I think I was 26, 27.
Hmm.
And at 26 and 20, I got saved at 22. And my friends were getting married at 22, 23. Marriage was
Hmm.
not on my radar. I hadn't been a Christian for that long, so I was a bit apprehensive about what a marriage relationship should be, or even
Hmm.
if I was mature enough for a relationship. So I didn't mind talking. As I said, with
Hmm.
talking to one was refreshing, but kind of narrowing it down and thinking, well, yes, maybe want to get married in 2 or 3 years. I wasn't really thinking about that. So maybe that's why Wanji didn't
Hmm.
call me. God had something in it and thought, yeah, she might have to grow up a little bit more before well, that comes around. But yes, but
But
yeah,
you can
it
see
was.
then why I can feel what we're going through being at that age and your parents like, oh, we got to find someone.
Yes,
Same
yes.
thing
But
happened to me.
the thing is, I was happy though, because I was living in London and they were in Freetown. So I'd only see
Hmm.
them twice a year. So I could go through that twice a year and I was fine. I mean, let me give you a fun story. So the funny thing is, I was doing, I think the equivalent to ACCA, I think is CPA here. So I was just about to finish my CPA exams, and I
Hmm.
thought, well, maybe I could go home again and live, and God shut that door, because I went home, I went to interviews, everyone loved me, but apparently, one of the I don't know if he was a CEO or anyway, one of the partners of the company said, "Go finish your ACCA and then come back." Well, whilst
Hmm.
I was there, Wanji's mom and his aunts. So Wanji's mom was my principal at school. So when she calls or when she invites you to lunch or what, you don't say no. So you
Mm-hmm.
go. And being that we were family friends, I went. So I was
Mm-hmm.
getting ready and thinking my parents were going to join me. And they're like, oh no, she only invited you.
Oh,
And I
well,
thought, oh, this is not good.
I'm in trouble.
No,
Call to the
I
principals.
anyway, and it was a nice lunch and everything. And then I'm thinking, okay, I've had food, I can go, I can escape because I had one, two aunts and his mother there. And that's when the conversation started. Who like, who are you going out with? Who do you want to get married to? And there's some of the boys in our family, the guys in our family who aren't married. And I'm thinking, I have been, I don't, I just felt set up. And I was
Yes.
obviously the advice that was coming, some of it was on Christian, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to go back home to my parents and ask them if they knew about this because I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand why, what was going on. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I only had to endure this kind of thing like twice a year, so I was good for the most after being traumatized. But yeah, I was good for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so in the end, though, I think I actually met Wanji maybe 2 years before we got together, 2 or 3 years
Mm-hmm.
before we got together, because he came to London when his mom was having either as some kind of surgery. I can't remember which one it was. And that's
Hmm.
knee replacements. That's it. And that's when
Okay.
we actually met. And it was a bit awkward, but my mom insisted that I needed to drive her to her friend's house, who I knew was Wanji's mom, and that Wanji would be there. So it was awkward, but we got through it. I mean, he hadn't said anything, he hadn't called or anything. So,
Mm-hmm.
we were cordial and everything. So, I think that's the first time I met Wanji. And I think I just met him that one time till till I met him in 2006.
Okay. Now, was that before or after the phone call?
That was after the phone call.
Okay. So you had the phone call and then you met
And then
him
I met him in
face to
2005. And then in 2006 was when he called and said, would you like to have lunch? I'll be in transit, and I couldn't do that. I could do dinner instead. But the
face.
funny thing is, I was prepared for that call, and it was strange because
Hmm.
a month or so before, probably like 3 weeks to a month before, we
Mm-hmm.
have um, we had a prayer meeting, and usually it's about 20,000 of us. This happens maybe twice or three times in a year. It was an
Mm-hmm.
RCC event, which is the Christian Church of God. It was an RCC event, and I didn't want to go because I wasn't feeling well. My friends picked me up anyway, and towards the end, I remember the general overseer saying, "Can you just trust God and just pray to God for a gift?" And there I was, the person who did not want to get married.
Mm-hmm.
I was coughing and I kept saying husband. And my friends around me just looked at me thinking, are you sure what you're saying? And I just kept saying husband. I was coughing and I was wondering like, why are you doing that? I just felt a strong urge to just pray for a husband. And I just thought, okay, that's strange, but if that's what's coming out of my mouth, I suppose that
Mm-hmm.
what's what wants me to pray about. So that I just after that I just had I think it was a God moment because I was just convinced that my husband would come before Christmas Day. I mean,
Oh, wow.
got
Mm-hmm.
ready. If anybody told me that they had something hidden, I just thought the husband will pop up. I mean, this was childlike faith, and
Mm-hmm.
I was happy. I would trusted God. I don't think that's ever happened before, but I just trusted God that God said it. He asked me to ask for what I want. I told him what I want. He's God. He's a
Mm-hmm.
miracle
Yep.
working God. Therefore, I will receive that gift. So I received the gift. and I told some friends, and I became the laughing stock at at church. Um,
Okay, so this happened how long
this
before Christmas Day?
this is a month to 3 weeks to, yeah, a month to Christmas Day.
Okay, so you're just believing,
I just
God is
believed out
saying,
of
this is
nowhere.
your Christmas present.
This is my Christmas present. It wasn't dating,
Okay.
no there was nothing. And
Hmm.
I remember, so
I love this.
Christmas Eve,
Hmm.
a friend of mine said, now he was married to my a very good friend of mine, and he
Hmm.
said, "Oh, I have something for you." I'm like, "Ugh, at long last, the husband." And he kept looking, thinking, why would I keep your husband in the trunk? Because he was opening up his trunk. I'm like, and I was thinking the same thing, that why would anyone want to hide in a trunk? And he took out this really huge teddy bear, which my parents had asked them to get for me because they know I love teddy
Hmm.
bears. And I thought, oh, okay. I'm like, okay, one step closer. It's something I can hold, one step
Hmm.
closer. I went to my friend's house that evening because she didn't
Hmm.
like cooking Christmas dinner. I love cooking. So,
Hmm.
anyway, so went over to them and they were consoling me, telling me how much God loved me, but this might not be the particular time. If the husband doesn't come, it's okay. And they had all this, trying to encourage me, and I'm like, the night has, this is about 11 p.m. I'm like, the night is still young. We're okay.
Hmm.
We have a good hour or so before,
Hmm.
but I believe what God said. They
Hmm.
went to bed about 11:30 after we've prepped and everything, and Wanji calls at about 11:45.
Wow.
Yeah. So he calls, and I was calm. I picked up the phone. Didn't know it was him. Obviously, I don't think he called with his phone, so I wouldn't have known it was him. Even if he did, even if he had, I wouldn't have remembered the number from all those years, back.
Hmm.
He called. He introduced himself. I was like, oh, okay, hi. And
And good for you for answering that phone.
I know, but I was so expectant. I mean, I was so expectant that, I was looking out of the window. I'm like, where's this guy? What's going on? And he called and I was calm. He said, can you do lunch? I said, no, I can do dinner. And he said, okay, I'll see you then. And I was like, I put the phone down. I'm like, thank you, Jesus.
Mm.
And I went to bed, woke up the next morning, still at my friend's house, and they were consoling me again. And I'm like, oh, no, no, I know who I know who he is.
You don't know while you were asleep what happened. Yeah.
And they gave me one look thinking, like, what's wrong with this girl? And I had to convince them that Wanji actually called. I don't know how I did it, but they kind of believed me, but I wasn't sure. Well, I think I convinced them because they knew who, they knew me.
Hmm.
And I remember I didn't have anything to wear. I'm a jeans and top guy, and they're like, "Well, you have to, dress up a bit and everything." I'm like, "Well, why? Why do I have to?" But anyway, so another friend of mine, we went to the mall, and she helped me pick out something. And I met Angie on the I, what it was it after Christmas? I can't remember if it was after Christmas. Anyway, it was during that Christmas
Hmm.
time. I can't remember. And I met him, and I thought,
Hmm.
oh, okay, good looking. He
Hmm.
was serious. I think at that point, because I knew what God had said, I wasn't looking for butterflies. I wasn't looking for anything to pop out of the sky or nothing, nothing like that.
Hmm.
I just knew that this was the person, and there was no point pretending or start guessing or hiding something or whatever. So we sat, we had a nice dinner, and that was it.
Yeah. There's something
Yeah.
about when you know,
Yeah.
you know. And when
Yes.
you know God has said something,
Yes.
there's nothing that can discourage you from you know. I
You
love
just
that.
know exactly. And the thing is, when God tells you something and you don't doubt, because there was no doubt. And
Hmm.
so even now when I'm making decisions, I'm like, if there's a doubt, is it God who really spoke? or did I manipulate something, or what's
Mhm.
going on? But there was no doubt at all.
Mm.
Even though when he traveled back to the United States, I started getting a bit jittery. I'm like, am I making the right decision? I've always lived in, well, most of my life had been in England. Why would I want to
Mhm.
move to the States? Because I knew, he was, he wouldn't want to move and all that. And I remember a friend of mine saying, we have been praying for this day for so long.
Mhm.
If you don't grasp this, I will grasp it for you.
Oh.
Meaning, I am going to accept it, and I'm just going to leave you to one side. I will pray you through, but
Mhm.
you have to be stupid not to realize that this is it. And it took me about what, a week, and then I was like, okay, God, yeah,
Yeah.
this is it. But most of the doubts came after I had met him. And it
Mhm.
wasn't because, I think at that point I was just anxious and thinking, always known Sierra Leone and London. And
Mhm.
America for me was just the place I came to shop because the pound was strong. The currency was not where I actually wanted to live. So I
Mhm.
think that the doubts, yeah, arose.
Oh, okay. So, when did you realize well, you realized this was the man,
Yes.
but when did your heart start to go like, I think I'm in love with him?
Huh.
Or how'd you, I mean, because you know he's the one,
I know
but
he's the
no,
one.
but
I
knowing it here and then
Yes,
feeling it here,
I
where
think
did this change?
so. I met him in December. I think by January, when as you said, you do know, but I'm
Hmm.
like, oh God, when do all these butterflies and feelings start?
Yes.
I think it was sometime in January
Okay.
when we started talking more and more.
Hmm.
That's when looking forward to his calls every day. I think we used to speak nearly every day. And
Ooh.
I just thought, oh, yeah, you're kind of longing for him to call now. And I
Hmm.
am not the kind of person who would want to give somebody else the other impression. I hadn't dated for 8 years, so I didn't know how to be.
Hmm.
So I just thought, oh, okay, things are changing. So does he know that I have changed? Does he know that I love him?
Hmm.
What's going on? And then I think when he sent flowers one day at work, and I
Huh?
just thought, oh gosh, now everybody's going to know because I was always a hard person, like you. But yes, I didn't want it to come to it. I didn't want to, but I did. I did. So it must have been end of January, yeah, end of January, February kind of thing, yeah. So
Okay.
that's yeah.
So what, I mean, did you just kind of wake up and go like, I'm in love? Or did it just kind of grow on you?
Huh. That's a difficult one. I'll tell you why it's difficult. I wanted to make sure I was making the right decision,
Hmm.
and I didn't want to. I've seen many failed relationships,
Hmm.
even within the church.
Hmm.
So, even where I was in my church, yeah, I love my church and everything, but I had seen fly by night relationships. So even when I was longing for his calls, like I would wait by the phone and just, all the time, I
Hmm.
was still a bit cautious. So even though I did feel like, okay, I am falling in love with him, I held back a bit.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
I think he knew, but then he knew that I probably was hard headed about it, or just didn't want to say so,
Hmm.
or just because I'd been hurt before.
Hmm.
Not hurt before, like how do I put it? I'd never given anyone my heart in that kind of way, so I was really apprehensive and scared.
Hmm. Yes.
So yes, I did know by the end of January that, oh yes, I'm falling for this guy, and what do I do, Lord? You have to help me.
Yes.
You have to help me. I One thing I would say though, I was happy that it was a long distance relationship, but because it made me think quite a bit without him having him in by my side all the time. So I could think, I could process my thoughts,
Hmm.
I could distinguish which one, which if it was love or lust or just wanting to be something new about
Yeah.
me. So it gave me time to think and just ponder on my thoughts. Yeah.
So it's kind of like where people would see this as maybe an obstacle, you saw that as an opportunity.
I loved it. It was definitely an opportunity because I felt that, um, again, as I said, I had seen so many failed relationships, and they were.
Hmm.
I am the touchy feely type and
Hmm.
everything, but I had seen just too many failed relationships that I knew I needed to sit, check my heart, and check my motives
Hmm.
before accepting that, okay, this is it, even though God had said. But I just thought, okay, let's make sure you're not everyone's getting married around you. Is that why you want to get married?
Hmm.
Are you interested in this guy, or are you in love with him? Or so it took a lot of soul searching for me. And
Hmm.
then once I thought, okay, this was it, I've fallen in love. I'm like, oh, okay, God, I need you to help me. Oh,
So
but
how long until you saw him again?
I think I saw him. No, must have been 4 months.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I think in the 2007, we must have seen each other 5 times. I had, England has more holidays than the United States.
Oh,
So
really?
I would just find a cheap flight and just come over.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, that really
That
helped.
still isn't a lot of times to see each other in a whole year, but yes.
It is not, but
Mhm.
as I said, I think, I don't know what he will say, but I think that was the best thing for us
Mhm.
because it was meaningful when we met.
Yes.
We spoke about what our future lives would, could be, likes and dislikes. Whereas if you're
Mhm.
always together, I don't think you talk about that much. You just assume. Um, so yeah, I really valued that time, spending time with him, but not too much time with him.
Okay. And how much time from would you say it took until the proposal happened?
Oh, within 6 months.
Okay.
It was within 6 months, or just at the 6 month mark. Yeah, because I think no, not I think it was sometime in July because I remember I
Mhm.
traveled from the UK. It was sometime in July.
Okay.
Don't ask me
All
the
right.
date.
Well, we're going to take a break for just a second and we're going to
Okay.
come back and hear more about your proposal.
Hey, you know what? I need your help. Would you please follow our podcast and give it a 5-star rating or write a review? You see, there's just not that many love story podcasts out there, so we're kind of building a new genre. And that's where you come in. Your interaction with us really helps drive the algorithm that shows our podcast to other people. Besides that, I just like hearing from you. So write us a note in the comment section of this episode because your participation helps us reach more listeners and it keeps the love stories coming. Thank you.
All right, so we're back and we're really excited to hear about the proposal. So
Mhm.
it's July.
It was
And,
July. I had come over from London,
mhm,
and Wanji is not a spontaneous guy. He's a planner. So once I see him planning something, I know, okay, something is up.
mhm,
And he's really serious and really focused. So I wouldn't say it was a surprise. Now, obviously, sitting at the it was a seafood restaurant. It
mhm.
was really lovely, and I'm thinking, we're not home cooking. We didn't go to just any restaurant, so this must be it. So I had made sure that I put on
Get
something
your
that I
hands
was.
all ready. Yeah.
I had made sure that I had something pretty, preferably a skirt, so that my mom could be happy. It
Uh-huh.
wasn't pants again. So I had to make sure I had all that and everything. And then I think we were sitting at the restaurant, and yeah, and he, I don't know what, I can't remember now, but what I remember is him asking me to marry him,
Hmm.
and he didn't quite get down on one knee. Wanji didn't quite get down on one knee, and I, even though it wasn't a surprise, it felt like a surprise.
Hmm.
Um, so every all the emotions come flooding back, like when I met him and everything. I don't even know if
Hmm.
I said yes. um all the emotions and everything just kept flooding. Obviously, everyone at the restaurant knew. We were kind of tucked in a corner, so not, it wasn't a full. That would have just, that would have just been too overwhelming. But
Hmm.
yes, and I remember him putting the ring on my finger. I'm like, thank God you washed your hands, your nails are clean, and that you wore something nice, and we took a picture, and it was just a really, really happy moment. As I said, it wasn't a surprise, but I was just full of joy.
Yes.
I was just thanking God because I didn't know who I would end up with, and I was prepared to adopt an escape marriage. I didn't want to mess up anyone else's life, nor did I want anyone else to mess up my life.
Hmm.
I would have been okay just being single. But the fact that God had this, had, I would say, chosen Wanji for me, and I would
Hmm.
let you know why. When I was praying with this particular friend who said, I will take this guy for you, uh, um, I remember when we were praying, um, sorry, I just lost my train of thoughts. Um, Hold
So
on,
while
what
you're
did I?
praying about, I'll
We
take this guy for you.
Yes, yes. So okay, so she would always say, I mean, there are things that she didn't know about, and she
Hmm.
would pray for my mother-in-law, and I'm thinking, I'm not married. Why do you keep praying about my mother-in-law?
Hmm.
And she, there were other, things that going on in Wanji's family that I'd never shared with her because I never knew Wanji either, so I couldn't have
Hmm.
shared with her. And I
Hmm.
just kept remembering that and just thanking God for that, because nobody nobody knew our journey, nobody knew what was, how we would come together or anything like that. So I was just full of joy, just
Yes.
really full of joy.
Oh,
So
that's wonderful. That's
yeah.
wonderful. So, how long from the proposal
Mhm.
to the wedding?
Well, we actually had two ceremonies. So we had planned to
Oh.
get married in October, but then I had to finish my contract at the job I was at with my
Hmm.
church. So we just decided, okay, I'll come over in December, and then we'll get married as soon as possible, and then have the bigger ceremony with our family in March of the following year. So we got engaged in July, planned the wedding for October, realized that wouldn't work, then planned to get married on the 2nd of January after I'd finished my contract.
Hmm.
So that's what we did. So I was supposed to arrive on the 30th of December,
Uh-huh.
arrived in the end on the 31st, and then got married on the 2nd.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
And that was in the States.
That was in the States. We just went to what would you call it? A court.
The,
We just
the
got had
Justice of the
a
Peace.
paperwork.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah. That's right here. Yeah.
that's because we're thinking, well, there's no point us ruining what God has done. There's no point living together, and then so we just thought, just come in, get married, and
Hmm.
then we can plan. We can just plan the wedding. So we got my pastor to pray for us after after the ceremony, and he prayed for us, and then we started planning our wedding for March, when my parents and his mother and everybody would come over. So yes, that
Wow.
was a whirlwind. It was a
Okay.
whirlwind.
So I have a question because my husband is from Poland,
Hmm.
and we had to go through this whole process with the K-1 visa. Did you
Yeah.
have to get, I don't know what the agreement is between the UK
Well,
and
Wanji had to become Wanji had been moving so much.
hmm
Didn't have a, well, not that he was a nomad or anything, but he hadn't been there for for what I think he said for more than 6 months. So apparently with the US immigration, you can't you can apply for citizenship, but
hmm
you can't your address has to be the same for, over 6 months or something like that. And
Okay.
he was moving with his job all the time. So he hadn't done it yet. So we I didn't have problems at first.
hmm
No. We did have problems at first because his citizenship hadn't gone through. But once his citizenship went through, then I was fine.
Okay.
So we didn't have all that wait because, yeah, I just came in and we got married, and then we just put in all my immigration stuff together and sent it to a lawyer. It was just the
Okay.
easiest. Yeah.
All right. So you got married here, then you planned the big wedding, and that occurred where?
Here in
Okay.
Nashville. So it
Okay.
was, yeah, 22nd of March 2008. And the reason I said it was a whirlwind was because I attended my I was at my brother's wedding in December,
hmm
and then I came here. I think I arrived in Nashville on the 31st. I said yes on the 31st. Then we get married on the 2nd,
hmm
and then I had to learn to drive on the other side of the road and and plan the wedding by myself.
Oh
Well, I would
my.
say by myself because Wanji had to go to work. I was at home,
hmm
having to learn. I say I still think it's a totally different language, and I've adapted my ear to understand it now. But I didn't understand the
hmm
southern accent. So I would wait for Wanji to come home, poor guy, and then I will, ask him to translate.
Oh,
So
okay.
and I would say, "Can you go translate?" So it was overwhelming, but it turned out well in the end.
Love it. Love
All
it.
that well in the end,
And
yes.
I definitely want to make sure we have some pictures of you and your wedding
Hmm.
on our website. So
Okay, that
definitely
would
the
be great.
listeners can go over there and see that. Okay,
Yes.
so over the years,
Mhm.
how have you guys grown together? How what have you learned? What advice would you give?
Well, Wanji and I put it this way. You think when you're single, you think you have this wonderful relationship with God. Not that you don't. You have this wonderful relationship with God, and nothing can trump that. And you get married and you realize that, oh, you do have you do have some faults. So I think, as a young married couple, and we know Jesus,
Mhm,
everybody has a relationship with Jesus, everything just works out fine. But no, you actually have to work things out between the two of you.
mhm,
And you don't just run to Jesus and think he can fix it. It's, it's not a genie with a wand. And you actually have to communicate, and which I was not great at. I don't think either of us, you just assume that the other person knows what you're talking about,
mhm.
and you haven't really communicated. So,
Yes.
both of us are going either way. So what I had to learn, I would speak for myself, one you would say, is what I had to learn was patience.
Mm,
I did not have patience at all because I had lived on my own for so long. So what I wanted to
mhm,
do is what I did. And if God said do something, I would, go ahead with it. Now you have to wait for God to speak to the other person. And I just thought this is tiring. Just speak to him, Lord. Instead, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And yes, so I had to learn patience. But I think the most trying times for us was when our daughter was ill,
mm,
and we really needed to learn how to pray
mhm,
together, fast together, and just learn how to hear from God and learn how to rely on each other as well.
mhm,
Um, and we worked really, really well under stress,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
I didn't think would happen. But I think now when we look back on it, I really thank God for that time because it brought us closer together.
Mm-hmm.
There were real there were moments that were so tiring and so devastating that we made decisions but still trusting God. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example, like when our daughter will pass out, or we made some mature decisions that we didn't think we would ever make. We relied
Mm-hmm.
on God so much, and we expected to hear from Him, even though it was tough. And
Mm-hmm.
we did that together. Now, we all had our views on the situation, but we had to trust each other. Like Wanji would say, for example, well, where did you find this out? Where did you find this doctor? Where did you
Mm-hmm.
find? But he didn't have time to do that, so he had to trust me that
Mm-hmm.
Maya knows what she's doing and will just go with her instead of fighting me on it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that I was grateful for that because earlier on in a marriage, I have a deep voice. Early on in our marriage, Wanji would look at me and say, "Oh, did you just command me to do that?" Or, the way you spoke to me, and I was just floored. I was confused, thinking, what does he mean? That's just my voice and that's just how I speak.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even though, yes, I do have a deep voice, I have learned to tone it down a bit, except when I'm chasing him around the house. I, I, I have learned to I understand where he was coming from and learned to not tone it down a bit, thinking that, oh, I don't want him to say that, or I don't want him to feel like
Mm-hmm.
I'm commanding him. But then I was sensitive to how he was feeling. So yeah, I guess that's one of it.
Yeah, I remember hearing someone say one time that you think that you're spiritual and unselfish, and then you get married and you
Yes.
realize you're selfish, and then you have children, and then you
Yes,
realize.
so you're like, okay, God, I understand, and then you have children, and you're like, oh, we're back to square one.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah,
All right. Well, is there anything before we end this that you would like to share about your love story that we haven't covered yet?
I think I think I've shared everything.
Okay.
One advice though I would give is with young couples,
Mm-hmm.
you're always waiting for somebody to complete you, and there's nowhere in the Bible that says that. So
Mm-hmm.
when you hear always, he completes me or she completes me, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, if you're not whole and complete, then it's going to be very difficult for you if you're waiting for somebody else to take that role when
Mm-hmm.
basically God is who makes you whole and complete.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
that's the only advice I have. You have to work on yourself. I'm not saying you should be perfect before you go into marriage, but at the same time, you're not waiting for a human being to fulfill what you're supposed to be. You know, your relationship with God should be what completes you and fulfills you. So
Mm-hmm. Because then you can bring something instead of looking to get something for sure.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly,
Love that. Love that. Love that.
exactly.
Well, Maya, I have loved hearing your side of the story. We're
Yes.
gonna we're gonna close this episode and
Okay.
start the next one
Mhm.
with Wanji's side of the story.
Okay.
Um, and I'm excited to hear any differences that comes
I'm
up.
excited to hear too.
Oh, well, bless you. Thank you so much for being on this today.
Thank
And
you.
I'll be talking to you soon.
Listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Please connect with us and share your comments about this episode on YouTube, Spotify, or whatever streaming platform you use. We want you to become a part of the conversation. So please go to our website, unexpectedlovestories.com, and share your love story with us. You can find a link to it in our episode guide. And while you're there, check out the photos of couples from each episode. We'd love you to share our podcast with your family and friends so that they can enjoy these stories as well. Unexpected Love Stories can be found on all their favorite podcast platforms.